Paul, we're back. How was your Sky weekend?
Yeah, pretty good. I have managed to avoid every bullet that was fired my way, I think. So whilst the transfers that I made didn't come off immediately, I think I've managed to miss a few pitfalls. I'd sent you a wish list of
You
things that
did.
I wanted this weekend on Saturday morning when I was out pushing the pram in one hand,
Class.
coffee and phone in the other. And yeah, so KDB blanking, or well, not starting and blanking, City conceding, no Almiron returns, and Salah blanking as well. Those were the high ownership um, elements that I needed to avoid this weekend and managed to pass them all.
I saw you put on Twitter, really interestingly, because I'd done the same. I was really tall. I was zero point 0.1. I was zero point 0.1 off going to Gabrielle. So I was really tossing up whether to go for Zinchenko or Nketiah from Palinha. So I know we touched on it last week, and I wouldn't say I was pro the move, but I think it was definitely worthy of looking at it, just because of the fixtures and how they were landing. And obviously, Palinha got the booking, didn't he, on the Friday night, which put him on 8 bookings, which means that he is very, very likely in the next 5 or 6 games going to get a 2-game ban, which was interesting because I didn't really touch on that last week. It didn't really factor into my thinking, but that pushed me over the edge. And looking at my future plans, I say I was zero point 0.1 short from Gabriel, which I was gutted about because obviously he got passing and he looks good for passing again moving forward. So I went to Nketiah, which you did as well.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't want to come across as a hypocrite because I know that I was against the move on last week's pod, but then I had completely bypassed me that he was on 7 bookings, picked up the
Same.
eighth there. We've got the two. Fulham's got the two captaincy days coming up. There's a requirement for. So now I was looking at alternatives of what I could do in those two fixtures instead. One, if he's suspended, and two, I'm unlikely to bring him back in now until he's served his suspension. So, yeah, I brought in Ketty and that only 2 points returned, but it was a short-term gamble move that I felt that the risk element was right of, and knowing that I could transition on somebody else as well. So I'm not disheartened by the move at all.
It's still there, right, as well. And Ketia is, he's got the fixtures, he's got the volume of fixtures, he's got the quality of fixtures, which is why we moved him on. I know, we had a brief chat over text about it, and we were both thinking about the Fulham games now, and Mitrovic looks the one. I am potentially looking at someone else only because now I've got Haaland, Kane, and Nketiah. I don't really want to get rid of Nketiah,
Yeah.
but to get Mitrovic, I'd obviously have to.
And here's an argument that I've only recently thought about as well. So I was all Nketiah and then looking to bring in Mitrovic. On those 2 weeks, Mitrovic plays on the Friday night, then there's like at the start of the game week. And the following week plays on the Monday at the end of the game week. Nketiah plays twice in that period of time.
Exactly.
So if you're moving Nketiah to Mitrovic, you're getting no fixture gains.
Yes, I agree, and I looked at that actually, which is why I kind of mentioned about not doing it, but yeah, I think with Palinha as captain, like I say, and we know this, we're probably guaranteed 4 or 5 points every week, 4 or 5 doubled, 8 or 10. I mean, you're happy with that, right? That's if he makes it to these captaincies without obviously getting the bookings, but there's probably better upside to other ones. Obviously, you risk the 2 pointers, but you're only gambling against 4 or 5 points anyway, aren't you? But if you go for Mitrovic, or maybe if you go for, I don't know, even the keeper, or a defender, I think the upside there is maybe a bit higher. So just I'm just
It's
thinking
quite,
about.
it's quite. Whilst I used to plan this far ahead in Sky, it's still so much football's to be played between now and then that
Is
I'm
it
pretty happy. I'm pretty happy and to make decisions closer at the time and just leave my options open.
the 31st overall, Paul? You've over halved your rank since the last pod.
Yeah,
What's going on? You're flying.
yeah. It's weird because I don't look at my team and think I've scored loads of points this week, but I just think that got I've just avoided those those players that I mentioned there. I don't have any City defence. I don't have De Bruyne. Rodri's only owned by a third of the players. He picked up 7 points. So I've not seen many teams with Rodri and De Bruyne on it. I did the Fernandes move last week, so I got another 10 points there. So I have picked up points there. And my other players are picking up kind of 4, like some sort of passing or tackling tier to make up the rest of the points. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with my team, pretty happy with my plans that's coming up, pretty happy with my transfer count as well. So things are going pretty well.
Awesome. I'm up to 109th. Had a really good weekend. I obviously started off with that Kepa and Thiago Silva full house on Friday, which got me off to a banging weekend. I went from 328th, I think, to 156th. And then over the weekend, I'm the same as you, really. I don't think I scored many points, but I think Bruno has probably made the difference. You know, he's looked like quite a nice punt to have him for these 4 or 5 games. With, you know, obviously Leeds Wednesday and again on the weekend. I do feel quite fortunate about the United defence. I do think those who went in for them have been a bit unfortunate. Obviously, they played Palace twice in the last fortnight, and they've conceded when they probably shouldn't have in both games. You know, they may get they're just desserts against Leeds now. Obviously, just sat their manager, but then you're not really sure whether they're gonna do what kind of Everton did and just go really, really tight at the back and play for a point, or whether Leeds will just go, do you know what, go and enjoy yourself, lads, go and express yourselves. It's a bit of a tough one, but I'm hoping personally for Leeds to score in both games personally, but yeah, it's really good, and I think I got a couple of transfers more than you still, but it's all evening out, and it's all looking like a good season.
Even owning 2 Newcastle defenders, I was quite happy with them conceding.
And
their effective ownership's more than 200% in defence.
Yeah.
And this was part of the reason why I didn't go more into Newcastle, in that if they don't get clean sheets, like there's no tiers there. So yeah, I'm now, I'm not against holding Trippier through what isn't a particularly nice fixture run, knowing that I'm eventually going to get him back in. I will be moving on Pope, but I'm still in 2 minds. Again, leaving myself pretty flexible on it.
I think for me, a bit of it depends on budget. We're talking about all this stuff now. We will talk about it a little bit more when we come to the features. But for me, I booked in a Bruno to Salah move as an example, and that has made me think about. That's why I couldn't afford Gabriel on the weekend, and I had to go for Nketiah. But looking at how the weekend panned out again, and obviously, looking at next Monday, that Liverpool and Everton game, at the moment, I'm not even sure I want Salah, I got to be honest. I know we've had a question about it. What's your current thinking? I'm a bit gutted, really. I've moved quickly on to Ramsdale because I quite fancy Pickford in that match now. What do you think?
So what I think I'm going to do at present is move. So Bruno only has 1 more game after that until the blank game week, and then they play Liverpool, which you could argue is a good fixture now. And I think there's opportunities to jump back on Bruno. So, but I'm not going to bring Salah in and then move Salah back to Bruno, because that feels like it's 2 moves on it. I'm going to pick a player that I want to get long term from Salah. If I do the Salah move, I'm going to pick a player that I want long term off of Salah, and then if I choose to move Trippier on to another player. So I'm daisy chaining along rather than it looking like cast iron, 2 transfers, bring Salah in for 1 game. That way, if Salah blanks against Everton, I'll feel like I've only lost 1 transfer for the sake of 4 points, which isn't much higher that I'm trending at points per average transfer at the moment anyway. So and maybe that's a mentality thing more than the practicality of point scoring, but that's what I feel like I'm on just now. I still think Salah's captaincy ownership in that game is going to be pretty high. It de-risks, but gives me the opportunity to use 2 transfers instead of 1 transfer, moving to a place that I was going to move to anyway.
As it stands, I'm like normally I would honestly be all over that move, completely understand and do it myself without any hesitation, but I am absolutely 50-50 at the moment, because not only do I think that looking at the fixtures, so Liverpool, they've obviously got that Everton game. They're then away to Newcastle, which we know is going to be a tough old game for him, right? So it's not even he jumps into a nice fixture after that. And then they're away to Palace again, which is not an easy game. But in that period, Everton have 3 games. Let's just have a quick look. Apologies, I am being too quick on the ball here. And they play. Obviously, they're away to Liverpool, but then they're home to Leeds and they're home to Villa, which are 2 bloody good fixtures. And that even after that, they're away to Forest and home to Brentford. So if you do bring an Everton player in, because we know this game, I say it all the time, if you bring in an Everton player and they do okay against Liverpool, then they do well against Leeds and Villa, you then don't think, right, I'm definitely moving them on. You can just keep them and you're ahead of the curve. So not only do I think it's a chance to go against Salah, I think it's actually a chance to get ahead of the curve, potentially on an Everton player, because Everton looked absolutely transformed on the weekend. They were a different team, completely different team, and so that's what I'm currently thinking about. I wish I wouldn't say I wish I hadn't gone to Ramsdale, but I would say that I wish I had the option really to go to Pickford, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
So if you didn't go back, to back up what you're saying, if you didn't go for a Fulham player in that first game against Wolves, or you already held one, you could move on to you could move your keeper. So whether it's Pope or whether it's Ederson onto Pickford, you get those games that you mentioned there, all the way up into Sky Gameweek 31. They play Nottingham Forest on the Sunday. You could move on to David Raya, who's the second highest goal keeper in the game, on the Monday night, and you get the captaincy there. Their fixtures are good for the short term afterwards. They play Everton, then Leicester, then
they are
Brighton's not so great.
And they have more fixtures in that period than anyone else as well, obviously, because they're playing on the Monday. So yeah, it's interesting.
I still think I'm going to move to Salah, but I think there's no other Liverpool player that I'd want to get, and I can get to Pickford from Pope. So he probably would be my second choice. I wouldn't pick any of the defenders because you're unlikely to get bonus out of them. And there's nobody really from an attacking point of view that I'd want there either.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like I said, I'm not set, but this to me is the advantage of not making transfers, looking at captaincy weeks and weeks ahead, because people who've held Salah all the way through this now, I'm sure I don't think they would question. They're not going to not captain him against Everton, right? But are they questioning that in the meantime? There are certain teams that still play twice before that. Man United played twice before that. They've got Leeds twice before that, and it's going to be an interesting few weeks. And I'm loving this Sky season, absolutely loving it, because the way that the season has panned out in terms of the overhaul, there's such variations in teams and tactics and transfer count. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
So what I was thinking about is, if with the Salah move, it's moving Bruno. Like if I move Bruno into Salah, I'd be thinking about moving to Saka the day after. So you get the extra game out of Arsenal then, and then Arsenal have got, so at the cost of one more transfer for me longer term, I've got Saka on my team who I want longer term anyway. One extra transfer and I'm getting double points against Everton from Salah along that move. So that's what I'm currently considering.
Okay. Enjoy your 4 points off Salah against Everton. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Sam D. Taylor, Julian Wardle is in. John Acornley says, need help with Man City assets. What is going on there? Absolutely unbelievable. Billy Anderson says, get in, you Spurs, from a die-hard Gooner. Kaiser Sose is in. Sam D. Taylor asks about Bruno. Is he becoming a must-have? Johnny White, Billy Anderson, Golden Goal Fantasy Football, says first time. So it's Tom, first time being able to catch live in a while. FPL Sparta, Nick Stevens, Darren Phillips, John Maloney is in as well. Thank you so much all. And Golden Goal Fantasy Football was actually looking at a player which I quite fancy for that little run as well. I can't get him again because I've kind of jumped into Nketiah, but Calvert-Lewin, I think, could be an option for that little run there. You heard it here first, Paul. You heard it here first. He had chances. He had chances against Arsenal on the weekend. He should have scored.
Not a rumour he's injured. Is there not a rumour he's injured again?
Oh, if he is, fair enough. if he's not, if he's not, and you haven't got three up front, I think he's an option.
He's not in my never again, but he's very close to it.
What are we looking at today, Paul?
So I'm just going to do the highlights from the from a transfer planner. The average points per transfer has increased since last week, so that's good. Just talk about a couple of points on there. Some of the popular moves that were done by Sky managers at the weekend there, and then I've drafted up a short list of 5 players who I think will be good to value over the next.
Lovely stuff. What's the value of your transfers at the moment then?
So I made additional 2 transfers at the weekend, so they'll bring the averages down because I only gained 2 points from Ketia and 4 points from Zinchenko. But the average doing the terminal event, as in when the transferred in player then leaves, is up to 6.9, and then when stretching up continuously out. So take on board your point about Watkins, because I brought Watkins in and then took Watkins out, so I'm netting on both of those transfers continuously after that point. But that brings up to 8 points per transfer.
Good work. I
have benefited 37 points from Cancelo to Thiago Silva. Factoring in 2 captaincies, I'll lose the Polina 2 captaincies in both of those days, which is why it's a smaller figure than the point in time that I actually made the transfer. But I'm now down 8 points on the Watkins to Salah move on the terminal end to the transfer, and then minus 13 on the continuous one thereafter as well. As I said before, at the end of the season, I'm going to bundle up. I'll also do not a plain average, but for example, 90% of my transfers yield this amount of points, and I think having that breakdown is going to be beneficial. I'm also tracking the reasons why I'm making the transfers to see if I can attribute that back in and cut the data that way as well.
Good work, mate. All sounds really, really good. Who are the 5 players you are looking at for the coming weeks?
So I mentioned one there, a goalkeeper, David Raya. I think if I hadn't brought him up there, I was going to ask you who do you think is the second highest point scoring goalkeeper in the game after.
I think I might have known that only because Serge is a massive fan, isn't he, of him. He mentions him a lot.
I've never ever owned him in the Sky game. 2.8% owned in the top 1K, second highest scoring keeper in the game. And you got that nice single game day against Fulham as well. So definitely one to keep my eye on. Second on my list is Gabriel. I could see myself going for another Arsenal defender in the short term and tripling up there. I think it'd be a nice differential having the 3 Arsenal defenders in there. He's 10.2% owned. It's the 4th top scoring defender in the game. He's not really had the headlines this season, is he? He's not I think he scored once or twice perhaps. He's ticking along nicely. Arsenal still got a large volume of fixtures, don't blank in the blank game weeks, so definitely keep my eye on him. One of my Sky favourites, I always love owning this guy, Lewis Dunk. So he's 2.1% owned in the top 1K. He's got 22 points in his last 3 games.
Wow.
Bonus magnet, always comes up with passing bonus. Brighton do have that blank coming up, but then it's predicted that they'll likely have a double game week, so a midweek fixture inserted in the game week after, or perhaps the game week after that. So when you're looking around about that time, their volume of fixtures evens back out.
Yeah, it's from like the 4th of March, isn't it, I think. They're home to West Ham on that Saturday, and then and as you say, it evens out, doesn't it?
Yeah. His teammate Matoma, who looks a very, very special player, 4.3% owned in the top 1,000, 1 blank in his last 5. I had suggested before that he doesn't pick up tiers very often, which he doesn't, although he did at the weekend. So 1 game sample size.
Yeah.
But only 7.2 million as well. He looks like a very good option. And then the last player on my watch list is Badiashile. So I've learned how to pronounce his name. It's the Tosin Adarabioyo scenario all over again. 1.5% owned, 32 points in his last 3 games, no Champions League. Chelsea might have a couple of single game days coming up. They do have one against Spurs. There's talk about a Liverpool versus Chelsea game getting rearranged. So if you were jumping off Salah and you didn't because you didn't want to hold him long term, even if that got announced before you were going to make that transfer, perhaps coming off Salah to then move on to someone and in turn making a different transfer to Badiashile might be an option. He is 0.7 cheaper than Thiago Silva too, so a double up could be a good option.
Looked at the Chelsea games, and obviously the next two are really nice. Arsenal did have a 4 for 2 over them. It was a 5 for 2. They've still got a 4 for 2 over them, but yeah, there seems to be quite a nice entry point. I think on Sunday 26th, it is away to Spurs, but during that time, their volume of fixtures do really improve, don't they? From Sunday the 26th of February through to Saturday the 18th, for example, Chelsea play 4 times too. Man United's 2, Man City's 2, Arsenal's 2, and stuff. So I think maybe that's the spot. If I was to go back in on Chelsea, that'd be the time I would look. But I definitely think Arsenal was the team to target on the weekend. Even though Arsenal lost to Everton, Gabriel still got 5 points. Saliba got 4. Ramsdale got 4. So even though it was a very, very disappointing game, the fact that they're so good, bonus and things as well leads them to and they were awful. Well, I say they're awful. Everton were exceptional, but interesting stuff there, and some transfer usage on the weekend as well, Paul.
Yeah, so again, I've just pulled out a couple of highlights. Mudric's top 1K ownership against Fulham went up to 9.7%.
Wow.
So that would have left a lot of managers disappointed. I know that that then reduced on the Saturday, so people going straight on and then straight back off again. Thiago Silva's had increased up to 26%, which didn't surprise me. I thought he was the best asset to own. Him and Badiashile, similarly. That's now reduced again. So again, like people like myself would have come off him. I think you transferred them out as well.
Yeah, on Saliba.
Other people followed the Polina move down from 36% to 26%.
Wow, that's a big shift, isn't it?
Only 1 in 4 managers now own Polina in the top 1,000. Bruno jumped up to 32.6%. Maybe that was some people coming in the top 1K rather than all just transfers. And the City effective ownership defensively. So I guess the opportunity was, if you were moving Newcastle to Man City, you could do it this week just past, or you could wait until the Bournemouth game this week and then do it there. I always like the extra week's worth of information before doing anything, especially when it's a 1-for-1 on a transfer, and not seeing City's lineups, which always concerns me, regardless of how nailed you think on one of their players are. Their defensive effective ownership in the top 1K went from 47% to 56%. So on average, 1 in 10 using a transfer on a City defensive asset.
What's your latest thinking? Because I think last week I mentioned Ake, and Akanji, and they both started, but I just can't understand what's going on.
So definitely neither now. But I am still thinking of doing Pope to Ederson, and then that is my City defensive cover.
You just got like a nice blanket there. Yeah,
and he's going to play. Yeah. Don't need to worry about getting frustrated when defender doesn't start. That would be with me moving Bruno to Salah or missing the Liverpool Everton game as well, which I guess I'm weighing up. My second team is 62nd overall as well, so I'm really reluctant to split ways at this point in time, because at one, I just can't be bothered managing two teams separately, and hence why I've set them up the same. But it's always an option that I could do the Pope to Ederson and Fernandes to Salah route in one team, and then do the Pope to Pickford perhaps, and then not use the second transfer, another team route, which I'll give it some thought.
Do you know, if that comes off, mate, and everyone's on Salah, like if you think with your head, heart, your head heart. If you think with your head now instead of your EO head, if you think of what scoreline do you think Liverpool Everton is going to be now, if you were to predict it now?
I think Liverpool beat them.
Do you? How much?
1-0 or 2-1 or something like that.
Okay. All right, that's interesting.
And seeing situations like this, I often go and look at like bookmakers' odds as well.
Yeah.
Like they will factor in recent performances from players, from teams to come out with. Because I still think, like we're talking about City, right? And we're talking about everyone potentially going to abandon ship and thinking about why would I come on Ederson? If you look at City's clean sheet odds, and the volume of games that they've got coming up, like it still looks like a viable move to move Pope to Ederson, in my opinion. It's guessing, like he could go and strip the team completely after what was a very lackluster performance. Not taking anything away from Spurs, who played excellent. But yeah, so I sometimes go to the bookmakers, have a look at their odds on the outcomes of things as well, and make decisions based on that. And I think they'll still have Liverpool favourites.
Oh, they will definitely. I think I saw yesterday that Everton were 5-1 to win, which it looks a good bet at least. But yeah, if you look at Man City against,
has Liverpool at what, 4-7 or something like that?
I haven't looked at that, but if you look at City's defense, just for what like their XGC, I think is still like the second or third highest in the league, but they just keep making these individual mistakes, like they've done against Spurs twice. They just given the ball away on the edge of their area and conceded a goal, haven't they?
Yeah, I think it was from the Green Arrow that I was listening to last season or the season before, where City were going on a run of conceding one goal constantly and had like by far the best XGC in the league, and then they went on one of the runs that
it was a record-breaking run. I think they had something like 11 clean sheets on the trot or something absolutely ridiculous like that. It was that season, I think, when Townsend scored that like 30-yard howitzer into the top corner for Palace, was it? Where they were just kept conceding these ridiculous 30-yard goals, or or kind of whatever it was. But they do go on these runs, and yeah, I get it, right? I think.
And Pope to Ederson, Pope in that period of time has one game against Liverpool and one game against City, and Ederson has like 5 or 6 games over that. Even if it didn't work out at the cost of one transfer over that period of time, on a transition, I like goalkeeper transfer moves. Transition to somebody else after City play on a Saturday coming up there after that.
What do you think on Sunday? City have got a 3-0 over Spurs from Sunday for 3 games. They play Villa at home, Arsenal away, Forest away. And in that time, Spurs don't play at all. And then Spurs obviously got the captaincy back on Sunday, the 19th of February, at home to West Ham. But you think United are home to Leicester on the same day, but I think it's probably fair to say that Kane home to West Ham is probably the better captaincy option there. What's your thinking there on a 3-0 for Kane for a City player?
No. Well, it's too, like you're whatever City player you're in, like you've got the same problem in that nobody's nailed in that team anymore, and
right.
You're laughing at my bluntness.
What do you think, Paul, about no?
And there's no City player that I want long term, so it's not even a daisy chain move. That's a Kane to the City player, play them 3 games, of which I won't captain them in any game because I'll captain Haaland, and then back to knowing that I have to get back to Kane, and probably from that player who I don't want long term. If you didn't have like someone like Rodri, then you could do Kane to Rodri and then someone else back to Kane. Then I could see that makes more sense to me.
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe of doing Kane to Ake, for example.
I don't think you're not.
Listen, and then daisy chaining back onto Kane from someone else potentially, because I do agree. I also like to have a little bit of a bit of skin in the game with defensive EO, and I think that Ake is probably as nailed as they come in that defence. And it is Villa, Arsenal and Forest, right? So even if he gets one clean sheet in that and passing bonus in the other two, are still 20 points when Kane is sat there doing nothing, which, again, look at the value of a transfer.
Yeah, I think my hypothesis about that is that we're going to end up at the end of the season and it's going to be roughly 10 points.
Yeah, no, I do. I
agree. My use of the term hypothesis there.
No, I agree. Average overall, but I do think first half of the season it should be higher. But and this is where you make your moves. Now this is where you look for these 3 for zeros, where like a 3 for 0, right? If we look, it's funny because in the first half of the season we talk about 2 for 1, 3 for 1s all the time, don't we? We're like, oh, look at this. But it's this time of the season. I remember commenting it in the first half of the season saying, we will get periods where we will have like 3 for 0s or 4 for 1, 5 for 1s, 6 for 2s. And looking at this now, it's hard to turn down 3 for 1s sometimes in the first half of the season, even straight back and forth 3 for 1s. But here you are turning down a 3 for 0, Paul. You're just not interested. Fair enough. That's yeah, anything else on transfers? We've got the transfer count for this week. Really good. In our WhatsApp group for the hub, we had a very good idea around showing the last week's transfers against this week side by side, which I think is very, very good. Top 10 stayed static at 11.6. Top 100 has got 14. Had 14, now it's got 13.9. Top 1,000, 18.1 is now 18. Top 5,000, 19.7 to 19.5. Definitely slowed up, haven't they? It's like you can see it almost reversing soon.
It was FA Cup week as well, though. So that I don't know that there was any games played from one to the other.
I thought it was. I thought it was for the last game week. I was saying I've made 3 this weekend.
Yeah, I was like, I did say to you before we went on air as well when we were looking at it.
But yeah, so Paul, we're both roughly around the top 100 now, and the average is 14. And by the sound of it, we've both got roughly double that.
Yep.
So interesting stuff there. The top 1,000 is 18, which probably we should all be sort of aiming for. Top 10, 11.6. That's not many, is it?
Yeah, and I think a lot were used at the weekend there, as well. So this won't factor that in because
a lot on Mudrick. Yeah. Next week's will be interesting because we should see probably a whole one of all these numbers as well, shouldn't we? So interesting stuff. Quick look at the game week ahead. Saturday, West Ham play Chelsea. Southampton against Wolves, Leicester play Spurs, Fulham Forest, Palace and Brighton, Arsenal play Brentford, Bournemouth, Newcastle. Interesting captaincy one for this one, Paul.
Yeah, I think that I will be on. Yeah, in fact, I haven't even looked.
I haven't even looked. I was reading those fixtures.
I'll be on Kane.
I was reading those fixtures, and they sounded completely alien to me. I was like, "Are these the right ones?"
Yeah, I was genuinely think like exactly the same. Like, I have not given this weekend's captain consideration, and I'm glad that the decision's actually out of my hands because it's going to be easy Kane and Haaland for me.
Yeah, looking at Sunday, that's a bit easier, isn't it? Leeds and Man United, and then City and Villa. We didn't touch, on this last Wednesday's one, but Rashford, United home to Leeds. Rashford is like 90, I think he's like 92% owned in the top 1K or something, so that's the obvious one. But yeah, Kane away to Leicester, probably looking good.
He's got a really, really good record against Leicester as well. Not that I always think it's like coincidences get drawn out of that rather than the odds necessarily meeting that, but he does have a tendency to do well against Leicester.
Not tempted by an Arsenal player against Brentford? No, just on Kane.
I think with Leicester, whilst they won at the weekend, still look atrocious at the back. Kane's in really good form. Yeah, definitely. Because Leicester, whilst they won the game, had their woodwork got hit twice. Did they not have Villa have a goal chalked off as well? Yeah, Coutinho scored, didn't he? It looked like Danny Ward was trying to jump out of the way of the ball. No, like easy decision on Kane for me. I think with my extra Arsenal players as well, that regardless of captain them or not, I'll hopefully do well out of that game.
Makes sense. And next midweek then, so 2 games, obviously Liverpool and Everton we've talked about. So do you think that Sunday is the right hop-off point for Bruno and or Rashford?
Yeah, after Sunday and then looking
After
at
Sunday the 12th, moving on to Monday the 13th,
well, they've got the following weekend. They've got a good fixture.
They're home
against
to Leicester,
on the Sunday.
That's probably a well, he'd be up against Kane for captaincy. But
well, this is why, because I've got Rashford and knowing that he'll be the most captain player, it gives me that comfort blanket of getting rid of Bruno here. My loose plans, which are subject to change, and if I did change my mind, I would tweet, because as I say, I don't like saying something on here and then not back it, like, and then doing something completely different. Is that I'm still removing Bruno for Salah, and then possibly, depending how that game goes, moving Salah straight onto Saka against Man City the following night, or 2 nights later. It is Wednesday.
the Rashford one is interesting because in that time there are teams, so both Liverpool, Arsenal, and Everton, and Man City all play twice before United play Leicester, and a couple of them play twice after before United play again. So it's a 4-for-1 there over that one. So I'm definitely going Bruno, but I am tempted to move off Rashford as well. I know I want Rashford back, but I don't know, a 4-for-1 for me is quite exciting there.
Yeah, and you can transition through as long as your risk appetite allows you to not own Rashford when he will be captained by some the following Sunday, and if he does well, you kind of need to take that on the chin.
It is, and I do think it is a risk, and I suppose you could look at it that those teams do only play twice in that time, so you could play him against Leicester and then move on after that if you wanted, because teams will then have a 3-for-1 over him or 2-for-1 over him or something. But yeah, it's definitely one I'm giving some thought to, because these are the little things I think that can make a difference, because not all of them will come off, but some of them will, right? So that 4-for-1 period there, and this is the advantage of having some transfers in hand, right? Even if Rashford scores against Leicester and gets a 10-pointer in that time, if you get it right with your Arsenal player or your Man City player, if you go for Saka or you go for Ake or Akanji, and they really get 30-40 points in that period, that can be season changing. And these are the opportunities I look for sometimes, and I'll have to give it more thought, but it's definitely one I'm contemplating.
Can I give you 2 scenarios? Look for an answer for both, right? So you own De Bruyne, which 40% of the top 1,000 own Kevin De Bruyne. Would you move him on to Bruno midweek against Leeds if you didn't own Bruno, knowing that you're probably going to captain Rashford?
So where are we? Sorry, I'm looking at the. So is it it's a 2-for-1, isn't it?
So before this midweek, like tomorrow night, well, it'll be Wednesday night's the game. Would you move on to Bruno?
I wouldn't personally, because they play at the they both play on Sunday, so you're not and if you go against De Bruyne and home to Villa, you wouldn't be surprised if he does well there. So I wouldn't personally, no.
So if you own De Bruyne and you don't own Salah,
yes,
and you come out of Sunday the 10th of February after that game, so you, as you say there, you let him ride because you want to play against Villa, knowing that Man City do have the midweek game against Arsenal, what would you do with De Bruyne in that situation?
I'd then be tempted to move him on, because I think away to Arsenal and away to Forest are very different games. Yeah, sorry. Well, whoever you wanted really, but if you were going for Salah, but I think away to Arsenal, away to Forest, I'd I think they're both really tough games now. I don't see De Bruyne. You know, he may get a goal, right, but I think there are better options in that period. Like Forest have definitely improved, and Arsenal is going to be one of the hardest games of the season for them, right? So, but that home to Villa game, I'm just, I personally wouldn't. I always like the week's more information, unless there's a real obvious potential upside. I'm not sure there is. Bruno may score or may not against Leeds in both games. De Bruyne may or may not against Villa, but I don't see a 20-30. Like, when I look at upside for point swings, I tend to look at between 20 to 30 points, and I just don't see it in those two there personally.
I'm going to try and do more of these scenario-based things on the pod moving forward, because I think that whilst we often think of things in the way that our teams are set up to do it, and trying to think of, certainly based on ownership of players that we don't have, what kind of scenarios might come up, and talking them through.
What do you think on those two?
Well, I think he plays the next two. So I think he plays against, like, De Bruyne plays against Villa and plays against Arsenal. I think, I don't know how budget would get used if you had De Bruyne and you didn't have Salah and Bruno. I don't know how you can spend the money in your team just now with that, but I think I'd be likely to hold. I don't even know that I would switch on for the Liverpool player, knowing that Man City play on the Wednesday afterwards. Albeit you have got coverage from Haaland.
He's got to score.
That's why I asked you the question, so I didn't need to answer it myself.
He's got to score to have any impact from a Sky Fantasy view, right? Because even he gets an assist, it's like, yay, an assist. That's that, up to 5 points. He's not going to get any bonus. So
and nobody's captaining him.
And no one's captaining him. So there's just so little upside with De Bruyne. He's got to have one of those spanking, real stellar performances, which if you look at everything going on at United, at City at the moment, there's nothing there for them. They haven't got the form. They haven't particularly got the fixtures. There's all this problems outside. De Bruyne was rested on the weekend. I even saw like something this afternoon. Again, it may just be like an unfounded rumor that De Bruyne is really hacked off with what's going on. He wants to leave in the summer. If that's the case, I can't even see him being in the team. If he's gone public with that, because you know what Pep's like. But there's just nothing there for it. There's just no massive upside. Even if he scores a goal, which everyone would be surprised if he scored a goal. All right, 9-10 points, but it's just like, well, in the grand scheme of things, is that really worth holding on to? I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some questions anyway. Thank you so much to everyone who sent in some questions. We probably answered a lot of them, but let's see if we can answer a few. So Ben at Dream Team Tonic, who's the best player to bring in for the Merseyside derby? We've kind of talked about this. I think you still think Salah, Paul, he probably is, right? But I do think there's an opportunity for people to maybe look elsewhere and potentially get a really, really low-owned player. Because Everton's fixtures after, say, home to Leeds and home to Villa, straight after that Liverpool game, there's the potential to really fall into something really nice there, almost by accident.
There's just, outside of those two that we've mentioned, like Salah and Pickford, there's no interest for me of a player that I would want to keep long term.
Yeah. No, I get that, but I do think there's in that time, Everton do have like a 3-for-1 over lots of teams. With the captaincy, it's a 4-for-1 over lots of teams as well. So they've got a 4-for-1 over Chelsea in that time, and and Brighton, and I think Newcastle as well. You can go from a Newcastle player to an Everton player there and have an effective 4-for-1. I think there, just as an example, because I was thinking of going to a Man City player, but instead of that, I could go to an Everton even a defender, for example, or I say to Calvert-Lewin or someone like that, and I just think I need to see.
I think I still need to see a bit more from Everton under Dyche before they were excellent against it. They were excellent against Arsenal, but I think we're taking a 1-game sample size.
I'm just having a look at that. Actually, is it an actual 4-for-1 in that period? Everton have got 3 fixtures over Chelsea, Man United, Newcastle. So with the captaincy, it's a 4 for 1 there, and we're talking about moving off Newcastle next weekend anyway, and we were talking about moving on to Man City, but the way they're looking, you're really going to want to kind of look at, because I was looking at both Akanji and Ake, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, oof, I'm not sure about that now.
The beauty is it puts off everybody else. So if City do end up keeping clean sheets in those games, people are going to avoid them now.
Yeah, I agree. Ron asks, what January transfer window signings catch your eye from a Sky FF perspective? Was Badiashile a transfer in? Because he just seems to have come from nowhere. He was he? I just know that Chelsea sometimes throw in some youngsters, don't they? But
yeah, I was like 30 or 35 million.
Oh wow, I missed that. French and but he looks good.
Monaco, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the one that stands out.
Anyone else from the new players?
I probably won't go there, but Craig Dawson at Wolves covers off captaincy day as well.
Yeah. Good shout. Just looking at, if I can, looking at Wolves fixtures. If you went in on maybe Saturday the 18th again, Bournemouth, Fulham, Spurs, maybe
cheaper than Kilman or Collins if you were someone looking at.
MC986 asks around again that Liverpool game I really think there's going to be a split. I really do think there's going to be a split.
There's another pod before.
It'll be that evening, won't it? It'll be that evening. We'll be not far off finding out the team sheets now for the game, and neither. I don't think either team. No, until neither team played before that either. It's not like we get another game of information. It is what it is now.
I would love it if Salah wasn't in the starting 11, and then just avoid. Excellent.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? But then I think I'd be more tempted to go to Everton. I would then, because of that potential upside, as they say.
At least that makes up your mind. Your mind.
It does. I wonder if we could afford, for those looking to go off a Newcastle player, because I think I've got a fair bit of budget in the bank. I wonder if I could go straight to Salah. I'll have to have a look at that one as well. Like I say, because I was planning on going to Akanji and Ake, but anyway. Let's have a look. Jay, best replacement for Shah after the Bournemouth games. Hit them on a 5-3-2, 2 Arsenal, 2 Chelsea, and 2 Newcastle in defence. We haven't really touched on much, coming off Newcastle, but next weekend, if we, as we said numerous times, from that Sunday the 12th onwards, looks a good, looks good one, because the next 2 games are Liverpool and Man City. They do have a blank in there as well. What's your current thinking, Paul?
Depends how far your budget stretches. Zinchenko, 8 million, Dunk's around about that price as well. I just mentioned Craig Dawson there, 7.3, but it would be a wait and see for him. There's not too many cheap defenders that I'm particularly interested in. I don't think that's going to pick up bonus at any sort of regularity. One of the questions was about Rico Lewis. I definitely wouldn't be picking Rico Lewis.
No, not for me either. City is the obvious one, but you don't get to see the team sheet, I don't think, do you, next weekend?
I don't know that I wouldn't be. I don't know that I wouldn't not try and make an immediate move like onto the Sunday, and you might have some sort of transfers planned in that period of time that frees up a little bit more money that you could wait. What it is the Liverpool game that comes straight after it, isn't it?
On the Monday the 13th, yeah.
And then, if you then had money freed up, then move on to a player on Sunday the 19th, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so. I've you talk about the EO. So a lot of people probably got 2 Newcastle or 3 Newcastle even, and maybe an Almiron as well. I think I was kind of set on potentially looking at both Akanji and Ake. I think after what's happened this weekend and stuff, and what we're going to learn this week, still think I'm keen on going in one. I know you mentioned on potentially going from Pope to Edison. I'm still pretty keen on Ake, but I do think there's an argument to potentially hold that second one just to see the lineups for Monday the 13th, or you could even move on to an Arsenal player on Wednesday the 15th to get that extra game against City before they face Villa, and they've got 4 really good fixtures going after then. I'm not as convinced as I was on going all in on City as I was, but I do think there's opportunity to, in that period between Monday the 13th of February and like Sunday the 26th or March the 4th, to have a just get that week's more information and really, we mentioned about potentially coming off Man United players, coming off Bruno or maybe even Rashford in that period. There could be something really clever you could do in that period to really optimise those transfers, get some low-owned players in, but also protect yourself at the same time, if that makes sense. I do think there's opportunity there because I think I'm definitely not going to have 2 City defenders now. Not unless we hear something this week like Pep says, right, Akanji and Ake are centre back partnership for the rest of the season, which obviously he's not going to do, right? But really, really interesting times there. So Sam Smith then asks best Salah replacements after the captaincy day. So there are people who have who've held on for Salah and been burned so far, but after the captaincy day, who do you think is the best person to move on to? I think you mentioned Arsenal earlier.
Saka, Rodri.
Yeah.
There's your extra game 2 days later. Both players.
Gabriel, as well.
Or come down to a defender from either team.
Yeah.
Probably Arsenal. And then, of course, always having 4 at the back gives extra flexibility in future transfers.
Good shouts. Michael Harlan says Tony to who? I think they're moving him to Diaz on Sunday as a punt, as he surely has to come back into City's team. I would be going to Diaz. Way too expensive for someone who's just not playing. But who would you move Tony on to? So Brentford play on Saturday, so it could be anyone from Sunday onwards. City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Everton. Who would be a favourite move from Tony? I think he's about 8 million. Tony, is he? I think Ake.
I think he'd be higher than that. He's maybe like mid-8s, like 8.6 or something like that. Or you fancy Ake or
I do personally, yeah. Ake probably.
Yeah. If I didn't own Rodri, I would move to Rodri before either of those, I think. I would probably wait until the Wednesday and move on to an Arsenal player, I think.
Yeah. Mac PMC has nothing in the bank. Would you take a punt on Shah to Lewis for the fixture gains? I would not.
That was a question. I knew that it was a similar question on Shah. I wouldn't.
So Shah is 7 million, isn't he? So who would you go to, Paul, at that? Because it's getting a bit tough in that bracket at the moment, isn't it?
If I had to pick someone, let's have a look. There is not a lot. There's not a lot interesting there.
It may be worth just holding him till maybe the Liverpool game the next Saturday.
I would hold even like Estepinan's like got the assist potential in the team at Brighton just now, but I just feel that any move that you would make there would be a transfer waiting to happen.
Yeah. Detailed Day says Shah to Akanji or Ake. Yeah, I think I fancy Ake more, but I think that's a good move personally. Was that sorry?
Out of those two, Ake or Akanji?
I think Ake. I just think he's more nailed.
I think I would.
I just think he's they've sold Cancelo, so that left back spot is just open. And Pep has said a couple of times this season that if they didn't have Ake, they couldn't defend. So I really like them both. I do think they're good, but I do think they're both good. I just think Ake is probably a bit more nailed, especially now that Walker and Lewis. Because at the start of the season, Akanji was playing a fair bit at right back as well, but they have got Walker and Lewis, so that's just the reason I prefer Ake. Sam, on the same topic, are we really moving off Newcastle to Man City? They look awful. I was contemplating 2, but I think now I'm going for 1 personally, and you're going for Edison just as the.
I think so. That's my current plans. Pope to Ederson, and if City don't keep clean sheets over that period of time, I'll pick up my 2 points based on the volume of fixtures.
And then GG Magpie says Pope to Pickford, so another one potentially looking at that. I don't think it's a bad shout. I got to be honest. I think it's one of those where you're not really running a lot of risk because you're bound to get some points in the game, even if it's just a 2 points to 4, But there is the opportunity there, to maybe, if Pickford has a storm against Liverpool, potential to get, a 22 pointer in that game, then you walk right into home to Leeds, home to Villa for Everton. So that's what I mean about the potential upside there is pretty high. Whereas, you could go into Edison or Ramsdale, who've also got some games in that period. But yeah, I'm not against it. I'm going to be honest. Anything to add, Paul?
No, I had looked at Alisson and their fixtures, and then I was just thought about how bad they've been at the back. This would be another option, right? Because you get the initial captaincy and they don't blank, so you do get the fixture volume. But yeah, it doesn't seem sensible.
Alex says he owns Rashford, De Bruyne, and Salah. Is it worth bringing in Bruno for the 2 games against Leeds just to daisy chain off him for an Arsenal player? This is one of the things you mentioned to me earlier. I think I said no, but what would you do in that position?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't either. Okay. Because you're unlikely to captain them in any of those games.
And David Baxter, final question, says Enzo Fernandez, tackling and passing bonus. I just think for me, it's just at the moment, it's just the lack of fixtures. I do think he'd potentially be a really good option from March onwards, but Chelsea, if I'm looking at this right, I've got 2 games in the time that Man City, Arsenal.
There's a really good jump on point. Sunday the 26th of February.
Sunday 26th, really that's the one against, is it Spurs? Yeah, they're away to Spurs on that game. That could be a good hop on point, and
you get another couple of games to assess. Like they didn't beat Fulham. Do they change his position, put him more advanced, perhaps? But yeah, I think that I'll one on the watch list and then have a look over that. David Baxter, if it's the same, David Baxter's doing really well this season as well. He's in the top 50, I think.
Well done, David.
Overall.
Very well played. So that is it from us for this week. We have recorded a Nip and a Half podcast this evening as well. So if you do play any other fantasy formats, we've just done, I think it's about a 12 or 15-minute pod just chatting about that. So search on Spotify, Nip and a Half podcast. Myself and Paul chat most weeks, just having a look at our Sky Seasons, Telegraph, FPL and Dream Team. Spoiler alert. I got to get it in, Paul. Sorry, I do have to get it in. I think Paul went ahead of me overall by, I want to say something like 120 points or something. On the lap, we did it 2 weeks ago. The gap is down to 80. So chopped off 33.33% recurring of that there. So Paul is not quite as smug as he was 2 weeks ago on that. But if you do enjoy it, give that a listen. As usual, thank you to all for joining us live, for watching and listening. Your continued support is much, much appreciated. Paul, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty1. MCANULTY.
And my handle is at FFH_Fergi. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. It would be much, much appreciated. Only 19 likes so far, Paul. Disgusting. Remember to subscribe in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast versions and leave some comments. David is 21st overall. Wow, David, that is
ahead of me. Yeah. I knew he was around me. I hadn't looked at the individuals on the leaderboard.
We'll be back next week looking ahead to Sky Game Week 29, just having a look at the fixtures. So before then, we've got Wednesday's Man United game. We've got Saturday's games and Sunday's games. And then next Monday, so we'll be chatting just prior to Everton, Liverpool. That is going to be an interesting evening. We hope you all have a great Game Week 28 and goodbye for now.